Today we're going to be installing Tortoise TTS.
But hold on a second. This is Tortoise TTS, a local text-to-speech generator that is currently the best.
What makes it unique, you ask? Tortoise that accurately captures the prosody and tone of the chosen voice.
It may still sound artificial, but it's a huge step up for anything locally ran.
So, let's get on to installing it now, shall we?
And before we jump into it, you're going to need Python, Git, and then VS Code installed on your computer. I recommend you get all three of these. A link down below in the description will have a YouTube tutorial on how to do that. Today's video, I'm going to be downloading a different Python version, so I'll show you how to do that. As well, this is only going to be a local installation video of it. I'm using Windows 11 and an NVIDIA GPU, so it may differ depending on your hardware, so bear that in mind. But with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and head on over into this repository where everything is going to be at. So when you head over into this repository, it's on a git.ecker website. We're going to go ahead and head on over to this wiki tab right here. So go on over into wiki, and it's going to bring us into this nice wiki that the author wrote up for us so that we can basically just follow it step by step and get everything installed. There are some additional things in here I'm not going over, like Linux and AMD stuff, so all that is in here as well. We're going to be going over the Windows part here, so what we want to do is download Python 3.9.13. So head on over to that page and scroll all the way down to where we find the Windows 64-bit installer. Let's go ahead and install that, and what we're going to do is go ahead and click on it and open it, and then we're going to click this, you would be install now. I'm going to click upgrade now, and this is because I already have 3.9 installed on my system. And once this is finished, you might have something that says add to path. Make sure you add it to your path so that you can use Python from the command line window. So with that out of the way, let's go back in, and you're going to want to already have download Git, so that'll be in that video down below. And then ffmpeg, we're going to need ffmpeg, so head on over to this page right here, and for Windows we're going to click this Windows, and then we're going to go to geon.dev. so we're going to be at this website here. We want to scroll down to where we see ffmpeg get full.7z, and then go ahead and download this into a folder. And so here we are. So it's going to be a .7z folder. So I am using something called brezip. So it is this one right here. So I believe you can use it for free, and you just click it and click extract, and it'll extract it. So you'll end up with a folder like this. Yours will be one more level down, so you'll have to double click into that, and then you'll have a folder where all of these are present. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move this into our path. What we are going to want to do is go ahead and right click and rename this folder to ffmpeg, and then we're going to go ahead, copy this, and then go on over to this PC, go to local C, go to program files, and then right click, paste this into your program files, and click continue. So once you have this here, double click into it, and then once you're in here, what we're gonna do now is go into our environment variables. So go into the search, type in environment variables. A window will pop up when you click that button. Hit environment variables. When you're in here, go to the path, go to edit. We're gonna go ahead, go back to this file explorer, go ahead, right click ffmpeg, copy address, and then we're gonna go ahead and new paste into there. So now you should have ffmpeg in there. So program files, ffmpeg. And so if you go into the way that you know that you installed it correctly is if you go into search, type in cmd, open a command line prompt, and type in ffmpeg. You should get something that looks like this. If you get something that says ffmpeg command not found, that means it is not finding it, and you may need to restart your system to get it working. So now we got ffmpeg installed, we are good to go. And so if we scroll down, the author has it all nicely batched up into a setup folder for us to run. So let's go ahead, open a file explorer. So go into your file explorer, navigate to some file directory where you want to save it to, and I'm going to do it in this delete me folder. So what we're going to want to do is right click and then click open in terminal, and this is going to bring up the terminal. So saying that you have git installed, we're going to go back into here. We're going to highlight and copy this, head back on over to the terminal, go ahead and Control V or right click it into here, and we're going to go ahead and git clone this entire repository. So give it a moment to clone in, and once it's done, you'll see these things right here. So now that we have it, if you type in dir, you should be able to see everything that's in your directory, and we can see that we have the AI voice cloning directory right here. So that is awesome. And so what we're going to want to do, you could do all that from the command line window, but I'm just going to go ahead and open it in VS Code just to visualize things a little bit more. So what you can do is open up the VS Code in one side and then the File Explorer in another. And then what you do is just drag the folder into VS Code, and it'll pop up with this entire folder in here now. So cool, we've got VS Code open, and this should have been installed with the video down below in the description. We're going to go ahead and click terminal up here and then click new terminal. So this is equivalent to the command line window that we previously had. Now that we're here, we're going to want to run this batch installation script that's right here, the setup -CUDA. I believe if you have AMD, you can try this DirectML one, as the author mentions right here. But since I'm on an NVIDIA device with CUDA enabled, we're going to go ahead and just use this setup-CUDA bat. So what we're going to want to do here is type in S and then click tab. So that'll automatically fill it in. If not, you'll have to manually type this in, so make sure the syntax is correct. And then we're going to go ahead and click enter, and it's going to go ahead and install everything. So this is pretty hands off. It should go ahead and install all of this. It will take quite a bit of time, so just go ahead and wait for it to finish. Alrighty, so we are all done here, and we've got a ton of things that processed. And so what we're gonna want to do is navigate into our virtual environment to see if we've got it enabled, which we should, because it should have done it with this Python env, but we want to make sure. So go ahead, type in venv and then click tab, then type in S, type tab, and then type in A, click tab, and you should have this scripts activate. So go ahead, activate it, and you should see that this venv here is active, and we're going to want to make sure that we have PyTorch enabled. So what we're going to want to do is do Python. So type in Python and then do import torch, and then we're going to type in this. We're going to type in torch.cuda.is_available and then do 2 parentheses, and we should have something that says true. If it's false, what we're going to want to do is reinstall it. So go ahead, type in quit, do the 2 parentheses, and then we're going to do pip uninstall torch, and you're going to run that. And then what you're going to do after that is just manually, so uninstall torch, you're going to manually go to this part, and then you're going to copy this, and then you're going to paste it into the window here, and then reinstall all of this. So that'll get you that torch, and then what you can do is just rerun all that before that we did. So the import torch.cuda is available, and you should see true. So that's how you know that it is installed. If you're not getting that, that means your device does not support CUDA. So that is all of the setup that we actually need to do to get the repository running. If you did everything and followed along, it should be good to go. So now what we're going to do is type in ST and then click tab so it autofills. And then we're going to run this start batch here. So let me move myself to the top right corner and then click enter. And when you click enter, things are going to start activating, things are going to start booting up. So just wait for all those things to install and we'll be back. Alrighty. And so when it's done, you should have all of these things that finished downloading. So they should all say 100% autoregressive diffusion decoder. All these things should be 100%, and you'll get something that says loaded TTS ready for generation. So we're good to go. So let's hop back into Google, and what we're going to want to do is type in this IP address right here. This is going to be your local host 127.0.0.1 and then the colon 7860, and that should bring you to this Gradio page here. So boom, lo and behold, you have Tortoise TTS running. So let's just go ahead and run it real quick to see how this works. So we go to settings, you have your autoregressive model, diffusion, vocoder, and then your tokenizer path. We go to generate, we can now generate a sample. So we're going to make this super quick. So we're going to bring samples down to 2, leave it at random 0 for voice chunks, and let's just generate and see what we get. And so while that is running, you can see, if you go back to VS Code, what is occurring, and you can see that it is downloading additional diffusers and additional things in order to generate that random voice. So go ahead, let that download, and then it's going to say done. And then we should be able to head back on over into here and see how long generation took. So it includes that generation time. If we rerun it again, since all of that's been downloaded, we'll get a much quicker time, this time 2 seconds. So let's go ahead, listen.
Your prompt here.
Okay, so, you know, that's a voice, not too bad, but we're going to go ahead and train, and I think that's going to be the most important part for the Tortoise TTS to get a good model running. So let's go ahead and do that. And to do that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to separate the vocal samples from the background environment. So what I like to use is UVR, Ultimate Vocal Remover, and basically this is a graphical user interface that you can use to remove the vocals from whatever you're trying to train. I have a full tutorial on how you can install this down below in the description, so go check that part of the video out, but this will just be a quick run through of it. So you select the input, I'm going to use this Godfrey sample, select the output, I'm going to use the Godfrey folder. In the same spot, I'm going to do a wave, I'm going to select MDX/net, leave it at default batch size, auto here, UVR MDX here, and then I'm going to do vocals only, so select vocals only, and then I'm going to go ahead and head on over to this wrench here. I'm going to do choose option, MDX net options, and then I'm going to do denoise output to get the absolute best output. So once you have that, go ahead, close window, and then go ahead, start processing. So it's going to start processing, and it'll take some time depending on your GPU. So just go ahead and wait for that to finish up. And if you don't have a GPU, you can use this. You can use it without GPU conversion by just unchecking the GPU conversion. So this is done, and here we have our vocal sample. So what we're gonna do is delete the video that we had, and here is our vocal sample. So if we go ahead and click into it,
It's been a long while.
we've got the vocal sample there. Cool. So open up your file explorer, navigate to where you downloaded the GitHub repository to, double click into the AI voice cloning, go into voices, and then create a new folder. In this case, I created a new folder called Godfrey and then put in that sample there. So now that we have this here, what we're going to do is go back into the Gradio interface, and if you click dataset source, you won't see anything. So you have to go back to generate, scroll down to see refresh voice list, click refresh voice list, then go to training, go back there, and then inside the data source you should be able to see the sample there. So we're gonna do English, we're gonna leave the validation text length at 12 and then 1 here. So we're gonna leave all the defaults, and then for this we're gonna go ahead and use base for the transcription model. It's going to download Whisper in order to do the transcription of the audio. So once you have all these set up, we're gonna do transcribe and process, and then it's going to download the Whisper model. So if you head back on over to the VS Code terminal, you'll see that it is downloading the Whisper model base English version. So let's go ahead, wait for that to finish already. And so once it's finished, you'll see an output like this. Of course, you'll have to be able to scroll up and down. So you should be able to see that the vocals, here's the vocal file that got split. There's the transcription of it, and here's all of the words right here that it transcribed out of it. So now we're done with that. So we're gonna head on over to generate configuration, and this is where we're going to set up our configuration file. So scroll on down to the bottom, and then make sure the autoregressive PTH is selected here. And then for dataset, you won't see anything, so you need to click refresh dataset, and then you can now see the voice. So we're gonna do Godfrey. We're gonna set up the learning for it. So for this, this is all dependent on how many data samples you have. If you have a lot of data samples, you can use less epochs. If you don't have that many data samples, you can use a lot more epochs. Since we only have one audio file that we're using that's 2 minutes long, we're going to use 200 epochs, and it's still going to generate an okay voice. It's not going to be the best, it's going to be an okay voice because we have almost no samples. So 200, and then we're going to leave batch size. We're going to leave all this at the same because it will automatically configure it for us. And depending on your epochs and depending how much space you want to use, you can change this up. But what I like to do is save it 4 times. So in my case, I'm going to save every 50, and I'm going to leave a validation every 50 as well. And I'm only going to get 5 models out of this. So 4 and then 1 more at the end. So once you have those set up as a base, if you go into the training and fine-tuning wiki for the Git repository if you scroll on down to the suggested settings, this is what the author suggests that you do. So you could follow what he did here in the suggested settings, but I'm going to go ahead and leave this like this. So once you have that, you want to go ahead and do validate training configuration. It's going to edit your configuration and automatically adjust it based on what it thinks is going to be the best. So batch size of 13 for matching my samples. And then you're going to click save training configuration. So that is done. So now head over to run training, click refresh configuration, then click down here. You should be able to see this godfreytrain.yaml. And then we're going to go ahead and run training. So it's as simple as just clicking train here. And if everything goes smoothly, we should see some graphs appear here and some words in this console pop up. So if you go back into the console here, we do have to wait for additional things to download. So once those finish downloading, we can get up to training. And so once that's done training, you'll see it start to continue. You'll see the configuration and a bunch of stuff will start appearing. And so if we go back on over into the browser, we can see that the epochs are in fact going. And well, we're not able to see any graphs here for whatever reason. I'm not too sure, but it is training because this window on the left side is updating. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to finish and we'll be back. Alrighty, and so we finished training here. We weren't able to see this, but we do have our voice trained. And so if we go into the file explorer, if you go into the training folder, go into the name of it. If you click into fine tune, you'll see all these folders in here. Inside of models, you'll have your PTH files, and then inside of training state, you'll have your training states. So after I'm done training, what I like to do is just delete my training states because it takes up a lot of space. And then I usually like to clean out all of the previous PyTorch files once I'm done testing out all of them to see which one sounds the best. Once that is done, what I recommend you do is create a folder called backup, and then move all these other folders into the backup folder. So the reason that I'm doing that is because all of the audio that is inside of here, it's going to use all of that audio as the samples for generating the voice, and that makes it take a long time. So it's going to take forever to compute your latents. Make sure you put those into a backup folder. And then what I like to do is listen through all of these split audio samples and find the best two. So I'm going to do that real quick. So I've determined 1 and 5 sound the best. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those. We're going to go back onto AI voice cloning folder, go to voices, and inside of here, we're now going to delete the original WAV file. You can back this up somewhere else so that you have it for later if you want to use it later. And we have these 2 voice samples in here. So now what we're going to do is use the voice. So head on over to training. Inside of here, this is where you're going to find your model. So you want to refresh model list and then go on over into whatever PyTorch file you're going to use. I'm going to choose 201, which is the latest. And then you want to leave all these the same. For me, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck slimmer computed latents. And then in this results folder, what I'm going to do is leave that here, but you can change where you want to output the results based on this path file right here. To do that, you would just simply navigate to whatever folder, copy the address, and then you can just paste it in there. But I'm going to leave it like that for now. All these other stuff you can leave the same. And then I'm going to enter something in here like, thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there. And then you can leave this here as none. Here are some emotions you can try. I'm going to leave that at none for now. And then I'm going to select the voice of Godfrey here. For my voice chunks, you can leave this as what it defaults to. I usually just put it back to 0. It just sounds better that way for me because it's not splitting the audio in odd spots, especially if you have a long audio file. Leave candidates at 1, seed at 0. And then here is where I like to do the adjustments. So I have found that samples at 2 generates the fastest, and still, you know, if you train a model, it preserves the prosody of the voice and the sound of the voice decently well. So I usually just leave it at 2 and then 32, but you can do 264 to generate a little bit better. And then I usually like to crank up temperature all the way to 1 to get a variety of different sounds. And then I like to show experimental settings, and we'll go ahead and play with these after I generate a sample here. So we're going to go ahead and regenerate here. So when we first generate, it's going to compute some latents. So if we head back on over to VS Code, we'll see the processes running here. And so it's going to load the models, load the tokenizer, and then load all these things, and then compute some latents right here. So here's your saved voice latents. The latents are basically the underlying characteristics of the voice that it's telling the model to train it to output these certain characteristics of the audio sample. So here we have it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel.
So, that sounds pretty good in my opinion. So some experimental settings that I like to select is I use the P for the diffusion sampler. Length penalty, I usually put around 5 or 6. And so repetition penalty, I usually put at 8. So this allows it to be a little bit more clear, a little bit more crisp. And let's go ahead and rerun this.
Thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel.
There we go. There are some audio samples. You can change all of these. These things you kind of just go by ear and feel. If you do too little repetition penalty, here's what happens. And yeah, it's going to get stuck on thanks. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and leave that at 3 or 5 or 8. You're free to play with all these. The author goes over all of these settings inside of the generate part of the wiki. So if you go ahead and scroll, go into the wiki, go over to generating, you can scroll down to see a detailed usage of all of these different knobs that you can twist and change. So go ahead and go through that. I've spent a lot of time, playing around with settings, thinking what I think is best, and playing around with what makes the voice sound better. So inside of settings, you can always go back to the autoregressive model to change which one you want to use to see which one is the best. In my experience, I usually just use the latest one and delete all the others so that I can save some space. So that is basically it for training and creating a voice model. The other part is going to be some other things that I think are useful. So let's say you want to compare different settings for the voices. You can head on over to the settings tab over here. You want to refresh voice list, go over to history, and then you'll see the voices here. So if you select Godfrey, or if you select whatever folder name you have, you can actually see all of the different samples and settings, and you can go to each one and listen to them. So here's audio 1.
Thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel.
And then here's the other audio. And so you can see what values you have set here to compare which one you think sounds the best. So that's the history tab here. However, if you do have too many results inside of this results folder, it can take a long time to load everything. So I only recommend you do this in the beginning so that unless you want to delete it, and you can delete it to make things faster again, it'll just recreate the folder. So that is history. I think that's really useful. These other ones in utilities are more niche. If you want to get into things a little bit more, you can actually merge two models. Like say you have a good model that you had trained and you want to merge it with another one. I can't see the other ones right now because I'd have to refresh the application. So to do that, what I like to do is just click the garbage can to kill the terminal, and then create a new terminal. Do st start, st tab, and then it'll autofill that in, and then it'll restart a new window. So then all you need to do is just reload the page and it'll reload. If you go back now into here, you should be able to see all these voices are now inside of the model merger, and you can merge two models in here if you want to create a different voice or whatnot. So I haven't played around with this too much. There are a ton of little knobs and things that I got to play around with, but that is how you can train a voice. You can technically train voices in another language, but I haven't gotten that working yet, so we'll see how that works. I'm running into some issues right now. All right, and so that is the Tortoise TTS GUI. It is one of the best in my opinion, and that is going to be it. There are so many different things that you can play around with on here to get different sounding samples, different quality, better quality, and I wasn't able to cover all of that in today's video, but that'll be for a future one. So if you want to see that, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. But that's going to be the end of today's video. I will see you guys later, and thank you so much for watching.